Hello and welcome back to my hardware review of a brand new QNAP. This is a device that I talked about a few weeks ago here on the channel, and quite frankly it's one that holds a lot of promise from the guys at QNAP. It talks a very big game and it brings a lot of their biggest features they've been talking about in the last 12 months to a system that is arguably quite affordable for what it is. On top of that, there are things that have never been seen before on NAS in this device, and I know that is a big thing to say, but let's talk about it. This is the 9-bay from QNAP, the TS-h973AX, but I said that wrong, of course. It is the TS-h973AX, and that is a big deal because this is a compact 5 hard drive ZFS NAS solution from QNAP, and it arrives at about 850 to 860 quid. It has got a lot going for it, and it talks a very big game. Ever since we talked about it a little while ago, this triple tier storage system that manages to factor in SATA hard drives at 18 to 20 terabytes. It factors in SATA SSDs, currently available in 4 to 8 terabytes, depending on the durability, and U.2 NVMe SSDs at PCIe Gen 3 × 4 each. That's 2 of them in there with a bandwidth capacity of up to 4,000 megabytes per second each. And this device, again, is about 850–860 pounds with tax. That's impressive, and if that's not enough, it also arrives with 2.5 GBE support and 10 GBE support. So what is it about this device that makes it interesting other than all the stuff I've told you? It's going to be ZFS. It's always going to be ZFS. So what we're going to do today is we're going to unbox this bad boy. We're going to take a good look at it, and we're going to find out why I think this is a real special piece of work here. So first, the box itself, super dull. It is the standard box they go with there. It's very robust. It's going to have the hard foam inside. It's very protective in transit. It gives us lots of information on the front, but let's not mince words. It's super dull. They're always going to be super dull. So servers like this are going to be purchased in eShops. Consequently, they don't need to be too overwhelming in terms of their overall appearance, because most people, when they see this for the first time, they've already got it in their hands. So let's take a look inside. Let's have a look. I should mention this device arrives with 3 years of manufacturer's warranty, and there's information here at the top that allow you to extend that warranty. Taking a good look inside, we can have a good look at what we get for our money. We have got an external power brick, and this is a 120 watt external power brick. And again, I talk about this in other videos, but I will mention it again. I personally love an external power brick. I don't understand the big appeal of an internal power brick, because if that knackers, unless it's a rack mount and you can pull it out, they're actually a bit of a nightmare to get out of closed systems. And I know a lot of us are a lot more tech savvy. Some of us may even carry a screwdriver on us at all times in order to do that, but a number of other people that want RMAs to be a quick, painless process are more inclined to just want to send the unit back or send a PSU back, and just deconstructing it, not a fan. So I personally like external power bricks for their convenience, easy to replace, and also the heat generated gets taken away, and that's 120 watt for this 5-bay. So again, we've got a mains power cable that's in conjunction with that. We have got our CAT cable and information with regard to setup and warranty. And again, silly little things I know I mentioned in my other videos that I generally rate a company on, and I think these guys are going to do well, and that is, what's the CAT cable? Little things like this. When you buy a NAS device, and particularly ones that are rated for 10 gigabit Ethernet like this, they better include a Cat6 cable. The price difference between Cat6 and Cat5 is very small. And for a company not to include a better performing Cat cable at 10 GBE, which is especially relevant in terms of low latency over distance, that's pleasing. And this is indeed a Cat6 cable, so well done QNAP on that one. We've got screws for 2.5 inch and 3.5 inch media, as well as keys for all of the 9 lockable trays inside. We've got that information on both the limited 3-year warranty that it arrives with and the extendable 2 extra years that you can add to it. And on top of that, our quick start installation guide that tells us information about first time setup, installation, drive utilization, finding the device over the local area network, and setting it up as a network and internet accessible device utilizing QNAP's own Connect services. But again, online resources are probably better. I just like a paper manual personally. I'm a very old man. And that's it for the accessories. Inside there, we remove the next giant bit of heavy duty foam. Nice heavy going stuff. And again, Shock damage on these devices in transit, even when they're unpopulated, is something that can be a real killer down the line. So I do highlight any company that goes the extra mile for retail packaging. On this channel I have seen some real duff packaging in the past that's light, thin layer cardboard, and the device arrives here for a review and that cardboard is wobbling all over the place, which means that unit has moved around in transit all kinds of time. You might not notice any kind of significant impact now, but that stuff can play its part later on and make you more inclined to take advantage of that warranty. So let's get this out of here. Remove that with the bag. And that's our lot for the contents of that box. Another giant bit of foam in there. And now we have, when I'm unwrapping this very close to the mic, sorry about that, we have the device itself. Let's remove that screwdriver from there. And let's take a good look at what 850 Smackers buys us these days. This is that 9-bay device. Now, this isn't the first 9-bay solution that QNAP have put out there. We have seen a number of 9-bay solutions, 5 hard drives, 4 SSD, for the last 1.5 to 2 years. And of all of those, the majority of them have been pretty good. But what they always seemed to do was either give you a great amount of storage with lackluster internal hardware, or good internal hardware and then kind of scrimped it a bit on the ports. This is the first 9-bay I've seen that ticks the boxes externally, internally, and in the storage media. Yes, it's probably the most expensive 9-bay they've put out, but it's certainly the most capable. Now, before we go any further, let's talk about some of the internal hardware and talk about the software capabilities. First and foremost, the CPU inside is, of course, that Ryzen that we've been talking about so much over the last few months. The Ryzen V1500B, a quad-core 2.2 GHz x86 64-bit processor. That CPU, I've got to say, is really make a positive mark on the community. Other people that have tested this, and again, speaking to a colleague prior to this recording, they were just talking about just how nippy the architecture works on this. And of course it is ZFS, but there's still no avoiding the fact that that CPU at server grade level is still pretty darn good. It's not a typical Ryzen 357, it's not like that. It's an embedded SoC of Ryzen architecture that brings a lot of performance. Quad-core 2.2 GHz. It also supports DDR4 memory, with this device arriving with DDR4 memory 8 GB by default, which can then also be upgraded up to 32 GB. Now, it's worth bearing in mind that this does arrive with ZFS QuTS Hero inside and included. So you've got all of the benefits of ZFS there. So first and foremost, removing a whole layer of storage architecture there, so things are going straight on the storage pool. On top of that, as long as you've got at least 16 GB of memory inside, you can take advantage of the full gamut of ZFS functionality. Deduplication is one that pretty largely relies on extra memory. Some of the other things are still possible, and definitely most of the core kind of groundwork stuff for ZFS, but all the upgradable stuff down the line, such as inline data, deduplication and compression, those are things that you're going to really have to heavily rely on that extra memory for, and that's why ZFS is such a hungry beast. You've also got much, I would dare I say, rapid RAID building. You've got RAID rebuilding significantly faster because it only has to build the data that remains on the disks rather than having to build the whole disks, including the blank areas. On top of that, RAID resilvering is supported, something we've already made a couple of videos about, with pulling and blanking and replacing drives inside systems to demonstrate resilvering and rebuilding. And ZFS performed exceptionally well on a Xeon-based system that we used earlier this year, the H886. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this bad boy performs when we do some more software overviews, a full software review, and how it compares not only with more powerful Xeon-based ZFS systems, but also with this one just next to me. This is the Synology, the DS1621 Plus. This too arrives at about 850 Nika, but this device is BTRFS, and this device is ZFS. Both of them have got the same CPU. They both arrive with that Ryzen V1500B. They both arrive with this arrives with 4 GB of DDR4 memory ECC, and this arrives with 8 GB of DDR4 SODIMM memory, non-ECC, but I'll double check that. I know a lot of these systems arrive with extra memory, but I'm not sure if this arrives with ECC by default. I don't believe it does. Now, The benefits of QuTS we've already talked about at length in a number of ways. It's got all of the graphical user interface and all of the applications from QNAP and improved versions of them and alternates as well, such as QVR arriving as QVR Elite on this, a new kind of surveillance software on this, but there are other surveillance applications too. It doesn't have a KVM output, so keyboard, video, mouse, so HDMI applications like HD Station are not going to be supported here. It doesn't have an available PCIe interface slot, so you can't upgrade the network port, you can't add a graphics card and stuff like that. Dare I say it, that with the U2 support, the 10G support, the 2.5G support, the multiple drive support here, I think the PCIe lanes of this CPU are already being used as good as they can and as widespread as they can overall. So let's talk a little bit about the storage media areas. So on the front there, actually before we get to that, there's lots of LEDs here on the front that denote each kind of storage media, as well as information pertaining to network connectivity, Ethernet, system status and more, and all those LEDs can be adjusted in real time. Now, the 5 main drives here at the top, and bear in mind you don't have to fully populate this device. You can utilize this with just a single SSD or hard drive inside, but that would be tremendous underwhelming use of such a powerful device. Now, the trays themselves click and load, so putting the hard drive inside, you just remove the trays, pop the drive inside and put the clips back on. Each interface is SATA, so that's 6 gigabits per second SATA, and the latest hard drives for NAS generally, let's get all of those trays out there actually, generally hard drives now are available in 18 TB from Seagate, Iron Wolf and WD Red, with 20 TB drives on the horizon thanks to energy assisted magnetic recording or heat assisted magnetic recording. All 5 of those bays out of there, we can take a good long look on the inside of this device. Have a look at those nice clean SATA interface inside there. No cable in its architecture, it's all direct in. On the side there you can just about make out the memory module there inside, and if we have a look, it is 2666 megahertz memory in there, and it is non-ECC. There you go, we got there in the end. So next we can talk about these lovely layers of SSD here at the bottom. Now, as mentioned, 2 of these are U.2 NVMe drives. They utilize a proprietary SAS-based connection on the rear, and those NVMe U.2 SSDs provide a huge increase on the amount of storage that you can have on these 2.5-inch style drives. Generally, one of the limitations of NVMe is that for all of its speed and performance and the improved controllers and even the improvements in NAND from single layer to multi-layer to triple layer to quad layer, which you shouldn't really touch, the improvements between an NVMe and a U2 is just a larger area to play with, and therefore U2 NVMe's have a vaster array of capacity open to them. So if we get these bays open here, there's our trays, and again these are click and load. There's little clips in the side there that go into the screw holes of each drive, allowing you to install those drives nice and easily. Now there's also 2 bays of SATA SSD, so once again SATA, but this time using SATA SSD solid state drives. Consequently, these drives are going to give you somewhere from 375 to 550 megabytes per second each. So each 3 of these tiers gives you its own inherent advantages, be they price versus capacity versus performance, and you can create a tiered system that harnesses the advantages of each. And if you're going to have a system like that, I tell you what file system you want ZFS. So inside there we've got all the trays, and again all click and load. We've got all of those bays out of there, so now we can take a good look inside there. And again, I'm not sure how well that's going to come across on camera, but inside there you can see those connectors there for each of them, with the top ones there arriving with the proprietary SAS U2 connection there, and on the base you've got those SATA SSD ports there. No loose cabling. This is a very efficiently well constructed device there. We have got everything in its place, and that big old fan there on the rear, which I'm being told is quite quiet in its operation, but of course for a lot of our software vids I'm going to try to keep this on the table. For a later vid we're of course going to be bench testing that 10G connection, so it's going to be interesting to see what kind of heat is generated. And again, this is a ZFS system which means that file operations are inherently higher anyway, even if they are a bit more memory demanding. I'm just interested to see how well that CPU lives up to task. So, if we look at the rear of this device, there is the aforementioned giant rear-mounted fan. Now that fan can be adjusted there with its RPM lowered and heightened. And again, I've got to say, that is a big and almost intimidating size fan for this device. So I am looking forward to seeing what the noise levels are on this, but I think with that amount of storage media inside, particularly the SSD media, active cooling is going to be paramount. So I'm not surprised that it is a decent enough cooling fan that it's covering the entire gamut of that storage media inside. On top of it there, I would also highlight that the SSDs inside, QNAP have been going to making some real time for this with their own anti-wear leveling software that's going to be double checking the SSDs at all times to make sure that leveling and the wearing of SSD media, the NAND inside, is monitored, and potential failed drives are at least recognized in advance, if not predicted in advance, so drives can be swapped out appropriately. And in a tiered storage system like this, that's going to be really, really important. Alongside the intelligent caching that ZFS brings to the table with its own ARC, means that if you are using a triple tier system on this or utilizing Q tier, the system is going to be moving, or not so much moving, but copying data onto the relevant tiers of appropriate media speed as and when they're required in the background without you even knowing. You don't have to use those storage bays just for caching though. It is worth highlighting that QuTS does allow you, and QuTS Hero does allow you to just use this media for raw storage. So this system that arrives with 10 gigabit Ethernet there on the bottom, so 1000 megabytes per second, also allows you to use this media if you choose just for raw storage. So you could have 2 NVMe's for raw storage, which, let's be honest, you're never going to get. 10 GB is never going to give you the full performance those SSDs can give you, but you could utilize each of these individual media bays internally for things like VMs, for things like large databases where the operations have to be internal as fast as possible, but the output can afford to be a little slower. What I'm saying is the flexibility of the SSD and more high-performing media inside and the high IOPS being available to you as either cache or raw storage is certainly beneficial. If we look at the rear, we can see there at the top, we have 3 USB 3 ports here, but what's really interesting is these are all USB 3.2 Gen 2. That means 10 gigabit per second each. That's interesting because that means we can connect some of the more high performing expansion devices that utilize the 10 gigabits per second USB, or attach faster external media single and dual drives for a connected backup. I didn't even touch on the fact that, and for those of you that know me well enough will know, that there is a one-touch USB copy button. It's a silly, tiny, almost rudimentary thing, but I'm pleased that this system includes it. Also, underneath it, we have those 2 2.5 GBE ports there that support link aggregation. So not only does this system have, as a standard lowest connection of 250 megabytes per second, unless you're connecting with a 1G client, it has 250 megabytes per second possible for each of those ports, with lag allowing up to 500 megs via a link aggregated or port trunk connection. And of course, the copper 10G base T connection there. And the fact that it's copper is another lovely element of virtue for this desktop device, because for me, a copper connection is something a lot of us can get behind, and copper's becoming far more desirable in a business than fiber. Fiber is about larger distances, and I think a lot of people consider right now. And particularly as a desktop device, most people that look at a desktop solution are gonna look at copper. And this device, with all of the performance it brings to the table, without having to be a Xeon, I might add as well, because up until now, all the ZFS solutions we have seen have been Xeon, and therefore the price point gets flinged into the sky. This system arrives with a far more modest arrangement, but it's an intelligently provisioned system where it's asking you to spend your money far more balanced, with the 10G on the rear, multi-tier media options on the front, and a great internal hardware architecture That's why this device ticks a lot of boxes for me. Now, we're going to be doing VM testing, we're going to be doing Plex testing, we're going to be doing comparisons between QuTS and QuTS Hero and standard QTS to see the differences between them, and we're going to be comparing this against this coming very, very soon, as well as the Synology DS1621XS Plus, a 10G Xeon NAS, to see how they compare. But right now, this is a damn fine NAS for me. If I had to fault it, I would say first and foremost, that Ryzen, as good as that Ryzen may be inside this, I might have liked to have seen an Intel Core or maybe an Intel Core version of this, but we'll have to wait and see. And maybe a second 10G connection wouldn't have gone amiss, but of course that might have bumped price up at least £100, give or take, with all those extras. But mind you, that would let you take advantage of the U2 a little bit better. But I'm quibbling. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Do check out the review in the description below, and also visit the guys at span.com for the perfect NAS solution. They know what they're doing, nearly 30 years in the biz. They will give you free pre and post sales tech support, and they ship worldwide. I know it's a plug, but it's still true, damn it. Click like if you've enjoyed the video, click subscribe to learn more, and I'll see you next time.